Another edition of the McCue Report as we come to you from the Virginia Sports TV studios here across the street from the McCue Center, alongside Director of News Content for VirginiaSports.com, Jeff White. I am Dave Koehn, voice of the Cavaliers. Glad to have you with us here on another installment as we look at what has played out. Last week we had our first break-in, Jeff, and kind of had a chance to dip our toe in the water a little bit, having had the opportunity to see these guys play just for a week at that point. Now we've got a bit more of a body of work to draw from, but still a lot of these battles brewing for positions and starting positions. Last week we looked at the offensive line with who's going to be the starting five in that position. Well, now we'll look at some of the skill positions, and when you have new pieces on the offensive line, as Virginia does, you better get the ball out in a hurry, and you better try to get the ball to your playmakers. The good news is a lot of playmakers for Virginia at the receiving position, but no real true marquee proven talent to this point. However, that is set to emerge, one would think, just based on the people and the personnel at play. Right.
I think the two names that we have heard most often that the coaches are excited about in terms of their potential as playmakers are Olamide Zaccheaus and Joe Reed. And this is Olamide's third year. This will be Joe Reed's second year. He was used primarily as a kickoff returner last year. We saw glimpses of what he can do. He's an explosive player. He's big and strong. Olamide has racked up a lot of catches, scored a lot of touchdowns in his 2 years. You know, I think there's another level he can go to, and the coaches want him to go to that level.
Zaccheaus is an interesting person to really cue in on because of what he can do. He's so versatile. He's got so many different things he can bring to the table. We talked about the loss of Taquan Mizell to graduation last year. In so many ways, he does have a really similar skill set to what Smoke brought to the table last year, and in fact to the point where he's no longer necessarily listed as a wide receiver, but as an H-back. It will be interesting to see how his role evolves this year as opposed to maybe what we saw last year where he was more of a true receiver, maybe a slot guy.
He actually came here as a running back, and then he got moved to receiver, and he did so well that he ended up staying there. So, you know, I think he's a guy who could be effective in a lot of different ways. I think the coaching staff, as Coach Mendenhall has said, has a lot better grasp on who can do what and has a better idea of how to feature those guys. So I would be shocked if Olamide did not touch the ball a lot this year.
One of the guys you can see that they're still trying to get a handle on what his capabilities are, an X factor, is Devontae Cross. Here's a guy who comes to Virginia as a quarterback, ultimately transitions to wide receiver. We saw that in the spring. We've seen a little bit of everything here in fall camp, and keep in mind, we're not able to show you everything that he's done so far in practice because they're doing some interesting things with Devontae. But as he continues to grow and progress as a player, he's going to be an intriguing guy to watch as well because you talk to coaches, they'll tell you his skill set, it is a pronounced one, and more often than not, these guys say he's going to play a role, whether it's this year or down the road, and a lot of guys will tell you it is this year. He will get his hand on the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we saw they scrimmaged at Lambeth today, and we saw him make a nice catch and a run after catch, and it'll be very interesting to see how they figure out how best to use him and a number of other players. But he's intriguing, and you know, I'm not sure there's another player quite like him in the system because he can obviously throw the ball and he has that background at quarterback.
Some of the other position battles going on at Lambeth Field and over at McCue as well this week and in the weeks, subsequent weeks leading up to the season revolve around that backfield. As we look at the backfield from Virginia's side of things, you've got two guys back from a year ago. We mentioned Smoke is gone. You've got Albert Reed gone. So that leaves a guy like Jordan Ellis in an opportunity to become the lead running back. And Daniel Ham, he was more of a special teams guy last year, but when he's able to be out there, he can be a big contributor as well for this Virginia backfield. And then, of course, you got the young guys. Peacock, who could fill that role as a big back in this new system that we've seen in its second season under Robert Denai and Bronco Mendenhall. You have a better sense for what you have in Jordan and, of course, in Daniel as well.
We talked to Mark Atuaya today. He said those two are clear, 1 and 2 in some order right now. The other guys are fighting for playing time. Another guy you haven't mentioned is Chris Sharp, who will be a redshirt sophomore. Has kind of bounced around from position to position. He came here as a running back, moved to receiver when there were injuries there. They tried him at safety last year. He's back to running back, which was his high school position and the position he was recruited for here. And he physically looks different than the others. He's taller. He's probably faster than some of them. He's getting back into the hang of being a running back, but I think he gives them, you know, some pretty intriguing options at running back, and it'll be the coach's job to figure out how to use all these guys. But you know, I do think Ellis is probably a clear number one, maybe 1A, 1B with Ham. But you know, Ellis is very interesting. on the list of no-nonsense guys in the program, he is at the very top. You know, he scores a touchdown. He almost hands the ball to the official, you know, before he can even signal a touchdown. He doesn't really want to exchange high fives with his teammates. He just gets back to work.
Yeah, for those that remember the Icky Shuffle, there will be no Jordan Ellis Shuffle after touchdowns this season. Making our way closer and closer to kickoff September 2nd when William & Mary comes to town here in Charlottesville. We've got a lot more to get to here as we'll break down the other side of the ball next week a little bit more here. It is another installment of the McCue Report. We're glad you could join us. We hope to see you Saturday night for Meet the Team night and movie night at Scott Stadium.